Senator Cramer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to both of you for being here. I want to focus a little bit on this, on the over-the-horizon strategy, which gets varying degrees of, enthusiasm, I suspect. But obviously, the generals have been pretty clear it's going to be much tougher to both collect data and to strike. Now, of course, in the last day or so, we're hearing that now the Taliban are calling on us to stop it. It's a breach of international laws and whatnot. And joining them is China. And I'd be interested to know a couple things. First of all, opinions about over the horizon as a strategy. And you probably won't say anything that we haven't already heard several times. But beyond that, is it possible for the Taliban to get systems from their friends in China or Russia that could actually prevent an effective over-the-horizon ISR and strike missions? I'll start with you, Mr. Jocelyn.
Yeah, I mean, I think my criticisms or concerns about over the horizon are basically a lot of what you heard on Tuesday and probably heard else. We don't have any basing rights right now in the region to launch even anything close to the theater. I would just add one concern I have, which is that after documenting this for so long, Al-Qaeda in particular, the U.S. never really developed a working model of Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, even across 20 years of being there. There were blind spots. There were large training facilities that operated for months at a time that nobody knew about. So this is going to get even more difficult now. The blind spots are going to get even larger, I would say, for that. In terms of China, all I would say is that they signaled very early on they were willing to deal with the Taliban. Even before the fall of Kabul and then immediately after the fall of Kabul, you saw the Taliban delegation that actually negotiated with the Americans in Doha, made a trip to Beijing and was able to get pledges of some sort of support from the Chinese. I would very much keep tabs on that relationship.
Dr. Nasser, same, especially this relationship with our near-peer adversaries that we're supposed to put more focus on while we take our eye off of the war on terror. It looks to me like it might be the same war.
Well, there's no doubt that Afghanistan matters to China, and the Chinese are now much more vocal in terms of a policy there. It also matters to Russia greatly, matters to Iran. On some issues, they also have similar concerns as us, but they're also developing their own independent policies towards the Taliban. And that at some point will interfere in the way in which we want to manage the Taliban or manage Al-Qaeda in that region. So I think the China factor is important. We often think about China as if it's only a Pacific Ocean power, but China is a West Asian power, is actually expanding further into West Asia, and Afghanistan is going to be pretty important. And I would say at least that one of the things that the Chinese off the bat have asked for from the Taliban in exchange for support is that that the Taliban would not set up bases or support their Uyghur Islamic minority, and that they would not encourage Islamic activism in Central Asia. So it remains to be seen whether that pledge holds, and what do the Taliban get in exchange for it.
Mr. Jocelyn, with regard to allies, we've heard some conflicting reports. Certainly our president speaks glowingly about his relationship across the world. The other day, General Milley did admit that our allies are probably at least questioning. What's your sense of how our allies are feeling right now and preparing right now, given what I think was not just a debacle, but it just appears like there's a lot of weakness right now. And I'm just wondering what our allies are thinking about the United States, in your view.
I'm very worried about our country overall in terms of our weak standing right now. I think you can note that the French, British, and Germans all made comments after this chaotic withdrawal, recognizing that there was a lack of American willpower here. I don't think this is just unique to this administration. I think we're dealing with real problems here long term. But the thing is that if the Europeans are saying they don't trust us, and these are some of our longest and closest allies going back to the revolution, I think we got a problem.
I have about 30 seconds left. Maybe, Mr. Jocelyn, if you could just elaborate a little bit more on our miscues in understating Al-Qaeda. I mean, that's really one of the more concerning issues for me.
I can't get over the fact that for all the hundreds of billions of dollars that were spent in this war in Afghanistan, that if you were to ask the decision makers and leaders of this war basic questions about Al-Qaeda and its relationship with the Taliban, I can assure you they would fail to answer them. They would not understand them. and because I've been doing this a long time, and it's dumbfounding. And so when you hear these buzzwords like remnants or degraded or decimated or on a shadow of its former self, these are all catchphrases, right? I always ask, what's the there? What's the evidence? We deal in evidence, right? That's what we deal in. Where's the evidence for what they're saying about all this? And so, as the U.S. has been saying that there's a minimal or non-existent al-Qaeda presence, I can tell you that in al-Qaeda's Arabic newsletter, Thabat, which we translate, they've been documenting that they're operating throughout the country, and they do that on a weekly basis. So why wasn't anybody checking on this to actually develop a working model that actually was rooted in evidence instead of wishful thinking?
Well, I sometimes wonder if they didn't know, we just have been understating it, but thank you, Mr. Chairman.